Let me ask you something personal. When someone sends you a hateful message, when someone disrespects you, challenges you, humiliates you publicly, talks about you behind your back, or tries to drag your name through the filth of their own bitterness, what is the first thing you do? Think about that. Really think about it. Do you feel that fire rising in your chest? That immediate primal heat that shoots from your stomach straight into your fingertips as you reach for your phone, ready to type? Do you feel that urgency, that almost physical need to respond, to defend, to clarify, to fight back, to correct the record, to make them understand who they just messed with? Most people do. Most people feel that pull so deeply that they cannot resist it. They respond, they fight, they argue, they type 20 different drafts trying to get the perfect cutting reply. They call their friends, they screenshot, they post, they rally, they wage a war. And here is what you need to understand right now before we go any further. The moment you did that, the moment you responded, you already lost. Not because you said the wrong thing, not because your argument was weak, not because they were smarter or faster or more vicious with their words. You lost for a reason that goes far deeper than words. You lost because you played the game at all. You showed up to a battlefield that was designed to consume you, and you handed your enemy the one weapon they needed most from you, your attention. You gave them proof that they matter, and that is the first and most devastating mistake you will ever make in the silent war that is human psychology. This is not a video about being passive. This is not about being a doormat. This is not about letting people walk over you with a smile on your face. What this is a masterclass in the most advanced, the most cold, the most psychologically lethal strategy that exists in the entire arsenal of human power dynamics. This is about psychological warfare without you having to participate. This is about a weapon so refined, so perfectly devastating, so deeply misunderstood by the people who use it poorly, and so deeply feared by the people who have it used against them, that it requires no voice, no movement, no energy, no explanation, no confrontation. This weapon is your silence, your absolute, total, complete, unbroken, unapologetic silence. And by the end of this video, you will never see silence the same way again. You will understand why it is not the absence of power. You will understand that it is power, concentrated, surgical, and more destructive to a human mind than any insult, any argument, any confrontation you have ever witnessed or participated in. Stay with me.
Let us begin with a concept that most people have never truly examined because they have been conditioned their entire lives not to see it. Attention is currency. Not metaphorically, not as a nice idea, literally, biologically, psychologically. Attention is the single most valuable resource one human being can give to another. From the moment you were born, attention meant survival. When your mother looked at you, fed you, held you, that was attention keeping you alive. When your teachers noticed your work, when your first love saw you, when your colleagues acknowledged your contribution. Attention has always been the signal that says, you exist, you matter, you are real in this world. This is not weakness, this is biology. Human beings are social creatures wired at the deepest neurological level to need acknowledgement from other humans. When someone gives you their attention, genuine, sustained, reactive attention, your brain releases dopamine. The same dopamine triggered by food, by warmth, by safety. The primal brain does not distinguish between the attention of a loving parent and the attention of an enemy who responds to your provocation. It registers both as, I am seen, I am real, I matter. This is the architecture of the human mind. And this is exactly the architecture that you must understand if you want to become truly untouchable. Now think about what this means in the context of your daily life. Every single time someone in your life, an enemy, a critic, a toxic co-worker, a bitter ex-partner, an envious friend who stopped feeling like a friend, a stranger on the internet with nothing but rage and free time, every single time one of these people provokes you, insults you, challenges you, spreads rumors about you, or tries to drag you into their chaos, what they are doing, whether they know it consciously or not, is begging. They are begging for your attention. They are reaching into your world and screaming, see me, acknowledge me, let me know that I am capable of affecting you. Let me prove to myself and to everyone watching that I have the power to move you, to shake you, to make you respond. That message they sent you, the hateful one, the mocking one, the one designed to make your blood boil, It is not actually about you. It is about them. It is a transaction. They are attempting to withdraw from your account. They are trying to steal from the vault of your most precious resource, your awareness, your mental energy, your focused consciousness. And they want to take it without earning it. They want to occupy your mind. They want to live in your head, rent-free, all day, disrupting your peace, fracturing your focus, feeding off the emotional energy you pour into thinking about them, responding to them, crafting comebacks for them, dreaming about the perfect way to destroy them with words. And every single time you respond, every time you type back, every time you defend yourself, every time you explain yourself to someone who was never listening, who never wanted to understand, who only wanted the reaction, you make the transfer. You hand them the gold. You confirm what they needed confirmed, that they have the power to reach into your reality and rearrange it, that they are significant enough to disrupt you, that you care, that they got to you, that you felt it. And the moment they know they can affect you, they will never stop trying. You have trained them. You have rewarded the behavior. And now you are stuck in a loop that will drain you for as long as you keep participating. But what happens, what truly happens at the deepest level of human psychology when you simply do not respond? What happens when the provocation meets not argument, not anger, not even a cold, sharp reply designed to cut them, but instead meets pure, absolute, total nothingness? What happens to a human mind when it reaches out and touches nothing? Let us go deep into the psychology of closure. The human brain, your brain, every human brain, is a pattern-seeking, meaning-making machine. It does not rest. It does not stop. From the moment you wake up to the moment you fall asleep, and even in the unconscious labyrinth of your dreams, your brain is constantly looking for cause and effect. It is looking for, I did this, and then that happened. I said this, and they responded like that. I sent this message, and they replied. This is not a choice. This is the fundamental operating software of human consciousness. Psychologists call it the need for cognitive closure. It is the brain's deep, relentless compulsion to complete open loops, to find answers, to resolve uncertainty, to understand why. When something happens and the brain cannot find a satisfying explanation, it does not simply accept the ambiguity and move on. No, it obsesses, it circles back, it replays, it generates scenario after scenario trying to construct a logical framework for an experience that has no resolution. Think about the last time you watched a movie with a frustrating open ending and could not stop thinking about it for days. That is a mild version of what the brain does with unresolved human interactions. Now multiply that by 100. Now make it personal, make it emotional, make it about the human ego, the most fragile, the most volatile, the most desperate for validation structure that exists within the human psyche. When your enemy, your critic, your energy parasite sends you that message, insults you, provokes you, does something designed specifically to get a reaction from you, they are not just sending a message, they are extending a hand into your world. They are creating an open loop. Their entire psychological expectation is built around a cause and effect chain that their brain has already written. I do this, and they react. I provoke, and they respond. I push, and they push back. This is how it has always worked. This is how human interaction has always worked. Action, reaction, cause, effect, stimulus, response. And when you respond, when you engage, you complete that loop for them. Their brain gets the resolution it sought. The pattern is confirmed. The transaction is complete. They got what they came for. And they feel satisfied, even if the argument goes badly for them, because at least, at the very least, they know they affected you. But when you do not respond, when the hand reaches in and finds nothing, when the provocation launches into your world and comes back with zero, their brain cannot process it, not truly, not easily. The loop stays open, and an open loop in the human mind does not stay neutral. It does not sit quietly and wait. It festers. it grows. It becomes an obsession. It becomes a question that the brain cannot stop asking, even when the conscious mind tries to move on. Why didn't they respond? What does it mean? Do they know something I don't? Are they planning something? Do they not care? Am I so irrelevant that I didn't even get a response? Did I matter so little that they couldn't even be bothered? These questions are not comfortable questions. These are questions that crack the foundation of the ego. Because here is what the silence communicates without saying a single word. You are not worth my energy. You are not significant enough to disturb my peace. Whatever you did, whatever you said, whatever you tried, it did not even register on the radar of my consciousness. I did not feel it. I did not stop. I did not react. I simply continued living my life as though you do not exist. And that is where the mind-breaking begins. The silence does not just dismiss the attack. The silence dismantles the attacker's sense of reality. It short-circuits their brain. It leaves them staring at a puzzle that has no solution, screaming into a void that simply does not care, reaching for a response that will never come. And that experience, that psychological experience of absolute non-acknowledgement, is not a minor inconvenience. It is devastating.
Now let us talk about what actually happens inside the mind of the person you choose to ignore. Because understanding this, truly understanding this, is what will give you the power to maintain your silence, even when every instinct you have is screaming at you to respond. In the first minutes after you do not reply, they feel a flicker of confusion. They check. Maybe the message didn't send. Maybe you didn't see it. They wait. A few more minutes, still nothing. They begin to feel a slight unease, not quite anger yet, not quite pain yet, but something slightly off about the silence that they cannot name. Hours pass. Now the unease has a sharper edge. They check your profile. Are you online? Did you post anything? Did you respond to someone else while ignoring them? Their brain is working now, generating theories. Maybe you're busy. Maybe you're ignoring them on purpose. Maybe you're about to respond with something devastating. Maybe you showed it to someone else. Maybe you're planning a public response. The scenarios multiply. Each one feeds the anxiety. They cannot stop checking. Their phone becomes a psychological prison. They pick it up every few minutes, not because they expect a message, but because the absence of the message is now occupying more space in their mind than any response you could have sent. They are checking for nothing. They are refreshing for nothing. And every time the nothing confirms itself, the wound deepens. Because what they wanted, what they needed, was closure. They wanted you to respond so they could feel complete, so they could feel that the interaction had a shape, had edges, had a beginning and an end. Instead, they are holding an open wound, a raw, psychological, open wound that your silence cut into them not with cruelty, but with indifference. And indifference, understand this clearly, indifference is so much more painful than cruelty. Cruelty acknowledges you. Cruelty says, you matter enough for me to hate. Indifference says, you do not exist in my world. Now they try to bait you again. They send another message, more provocative this time, more targeted. They know what buttons to push, and they push them harder now, because the first attempt yielded nothing, and their mind is now in a state of desperate escalation. They need a response. They are craving it like an addict craves a substance. Not because they are winning, they are not winning, but because the lack of response is eating them alive from the inside. And the only way to make it stop is to get you to acknowledge that they exist. And you? 5 seconds after the first message arrived, you had already moved on. Not because you are cold-blooded, not because you are unfeeling, but because you understood that their drama is not your emergency. Their chaos is not your burden. Their need for validation from you is not something you owe them. While they are obsessing, checking, refreshing, baiting, spiraling, you are building, you are working, you are living, you are growing. You are at dinner with people who matter, You are in the gym getting stronger. You are closing deals, creating art, sleeping peacefully, waking up refreshed, moving forward on goals that have nothing to do with them and everything to do with the life you are constructing. And this contrast, this savage, beautiful contrast between your peace and their chaos is the punishment. Not a punishment you designed, not a punishment you announced, not a punishment that cost you anything. It exists automatically, effortlessly, as a direct consequence of your silence. While they scream into the void, you have already forgotten the void exists. Now I want to introduce you to what I call the eraser effect. Most people, when they want to hurt someone, choose argument. They choose confrontation. They choose to expose, to humiliate, to post the screenshots, to call people out publicly, to wage a visible war. And I understand why. It feels powerful. It feels satisfying. It feels like you are doing something. But let me tell you what an argument actually does at the psychological level. When you argue with someone, you acknowledge them. You say, "You are real enough, significant enough, threatening enough, that I am willing to stop what I am doing, lower myself into your level of conflict, and spend my time, my energy, my words engaging with you." Every rebuttal you give them validates their existence in your reality. Every insult you trade makes them visible. Every back and forth exchange confirms that they have secured your attention, the most valuable thing you own. In an argument, they are seen, they exist, they are acknowledged, they are a character in your story. They are someone you fight with, and even being someone's enemy is a form of recognition. Even being hated is better to the desperate human ego than being invisible. But silence? Absolute silence? Absolute indifference? Silence does not fight back. Silence does not escalate. Silence does not give them a target. Silence does not confirm their relevance. Silence reaches into the story of your life and removes them from the narrative entirely. You are not fighting them. You are not even aware of them enough to fight. You have simply erased them. And that erasure, that psychological, emotional, existential erasure, is more painful than any insult you could ever craft. Because insults can be answered. Arguments can be won or lost. Public call-outs can be spun and turned around. But erasure, there is no response to erasure. There is no comeback to being made invisible. There is no way to fight someone who does not acknowledge that a fight is happening. Think about the most powerful people you have ever watched, in business, in life, in history. The truly powerful ones. The ones who operated at a level so far above the noise that the noise simply did not reach them. Did they respond to every critic? Did they engage with every provocateur? Did they stoop down into the trenches of social media arguments to defend their reputation to people who had already decided what they thought? No. They built, they created, they moved. They succeeded so thoroughly that their success became the only reply that mattered. Their work spoke so loudly that their silence on the petty issues was not weakness. It was the most devastating display of strength possible. Because nothing, absolutely nothing, destroys an enemy more completely than watching you thrive without them. Your silence tells them, "I do not need to fight you because I am already so far ahead that you are not visible from where I stand." That is the eraser. That is the most brutal psychological weapon in existence. And you carry it with you every single day.
Now let us be very specific, because powerful tools must be used with precision. Not every person in your life deserves the eraser. You need to understand exactly who to erase, and you need to understand why each category requires a different understanding. There are 3 types of people in your life who must be subjected to your silence. Three distinct categories of individuals who are feeding on your energy, consuming your mental bandwidth, and draining from the reservoir of power that you should be investing in yourself. The first are your enemies, not the enemies you invented in your head, the real ones, the people who actively work against you, the ones who talk about you when you are not in the room, the ones who celebrate quietly when something goes wrong in your life, the ones who smile at your face and work against your interests in the dark, the ones who would like nothing more than to see you fall. Here is the single most important thing you will ever understand about dealing with a real enemy. Do not fight them. Do not expose them. Do not warn people about them. Do not campaign against them. Let your success be their torture. Think about this deeply. Your enemy does not fear your anger. Your anger is entertainment for them. Your anger is confirmation that they got to you, that they still matter enough to you to generate an emotional response. Your anger is actually a victory for them, even when you think you are winning the argument. What your enemy cannot process, what genuinely ruins them at the psychological level, is watching you succeed without even acknowledging their interference. When you thrive in spite of everything they did to prevent it. When your name grows and your opportunities multiply and your life becomes undeniably, visibly better, while they remain exactly where they are or worse, fall further. And you never once mentioned them, never once credited them with being the obstacle they tried to be, never once looked back to see if they were watching. The sweetest form of revenge is a life they cannot touch. Every morning you wake up and build something, your career, your health, your relationships, your craft, your financial independence, your peace of mind. Every day you move forward with purpose and silence. You are administering the punishment they deserve without spending a single calorie of your energy on them. That is elegance. That is power. That is what it means to be so evolved in your thinking that the very concept of lowering yourself to fight someone becomes almost comical. Your silence and your success are the two most lethal weapons against any enemy. Used together, they become an unstoppable force that no argument, no confrontation, no public drama could ever match. The second category are your critics, and I want you to understand something fundamental about critics, something that most people never realize because they are too busy defending themselves to see it clearly. Critics need you, not in a romantic way, not in a complicated way, in the most biological, most urgent, most desperate way imaginable. Critics exist because of you, without something to criticize, without someone to tear down, without a target for their observations and opinions and judgments. They are nothing. They have no identity. They have no platform. They have no voice that anyone would hear. They are dependent on the existence of people doing things, creating things, building things, achieving things, because the critic's entire existence is parasitic. They survive by attaching themselves to the accomplishment of others and marking it with doubt. And here is the critical insight. Every time you respond to a critic, you feed them. You give them what they need to stay alive. You make them relevant. You extend their reach. You bring your audience into contact with their voice. You tell the world, this person said something important enough that I needed to respond. But what happens when you simply do not? What happens when the critic posts their opinion, launches their take, writes their piece, sends their message, and you respond with nothing? The critique echoes in empty space. Your audience, seeing no response from you, moves on. There is no drama to watch. There is no fight to follow. There is no story to engage with. The critique lands and dissipates like smoke in open air. The critic speaks, and the only sound that comes back is the hollow echo of their own voice. And over time, as this pattern repeats, as the silence keeps meeting the noise, the critics lose their power. Their audience diminishes because their content can generate no reaction. They cannot build a narrative without your participation. They cannot manufacture controversy without your engagement. They wither, and you watch them wither in silence. You do not celebrate. You do not gloat. You do not say, look what happened to the people who doubted me. You simply continue to build, and the building is the statement. Starve them of the attention that keeps them alive. That is how you kill a critic without lifting a single word against them. The third category, and perhaps the most personally destructive, the most quietly dangerous, the most emotionally complex to deal with, are the energy parasites. These are not always your enemies. They are sometimes people you love, sometimes people you have known for years, sometimes family members, long-term friends, people you have deep history with. And that history is exactly what makes them so dangerous. Energy parasites are the people in your life who exist in a constant, unending state of crisis. Every time you speak with them, every time they call, every time they reach out, there is a problem, a new drama, a new emergency, a new devastating thing that has happened that only you can help them process, solve, survive. Their life is a never-ending cycle of chaos, and you are the steady, reliable, emotionally available person they come to when the chaos becomes too much. And you help because you care, because you are a good person, because history and love and obligation tell you that this is what you do for the people in your life. But let me ask you something. When is the last time they asked how you were doing? When is the last time the conversation was about something that mattered to you? When is the last time you hung up the phone feeling energized rather than drained? When is the last time you were not the one carrying the weight of their emotional world, while somehow being expected to also carry your own? Energy parasites are not always malicious. Many of them genuinely do not realize what they are doing. Their trauma is real, their pain is real, their crises feel genuinely urgent to them, but the effect on you is the same regardless of intent. They are consuming the energy you need for yourself. Every hour you spend processing their endless dramas is an hour not spent on your own healing, your own growth, your own goals. Every emotional resource you pour into their chaos is a resource your own life needed. Every time they call and you answer and you give, they leave the conversation lighter and you leave it heavier, and you are carrying their weight at the expense of your own progress. The silence here is not cruelty, it is survival. It is self-preservation. It is the recognition that you cannot pour from an empty vessel, and that protecting your energy is not selfishness. It is the most fundamental act of self-respect. You do not announce the distance. You do not explain. You do not give them a long conversation about boundaries and emotional labor, and why you cannot continue to be their unpaid therapist. That conversation will simply become another drama for them to process, and you will somehow end up being the villain of the story they tell themselves. You simply become less available. You let calls go unanswered sometimes. You take longer to respond. You stop volunteering yourself as the first call they make when the world falls apart. And slowly, quietly, without drama, without confrontation, you reclaim your energy. Your silence here is not punishment. It is protection. It is the quiet act of choosing yourself, perhaps for the first time in a very long time.
Now I want to speak to the part of you that is resisting this. Because some part of you right now, I know it, is uncomfortable with this. Some part of you has been raised to believe that ignoring people is rude, that silence is passive-aggressive, that real strength means confronting things head-on, that being the bigger person means engaging, explaining, offering second chances, having difficult conversations, giving people the opportunity to understand where they went wrong. And I need you to hear this carefully. That conditioning is exactly what the wrong people in your life are counting on. When someone provokes you and expects a reaction, they are counting on the social programming that told you ignoring people is unkind. They are using your own goodness against you. Your willingness to engage is not a virtue in that moment. It is a vulnerability. And they know it. Often consciously, always effectively. There is a difference between resolution and reaction. Resolution is something you seek with people who are genuinely part of your life. People you love. People you are building something with. People whose relationship with you has real value and real depth. With those people, you talk. You explain. You work through conflict because the relationship is worth the energy. That is not weakness, that is wisdom. But reaction? Reaction is what you give to people who do not belong in your life at all. People whose only connection to you is the reaction they can extract. People who exist in your life not as builders, but as consumers, consuming your time, your energy, your peace, your focus. For those people, silence is not rudeness. Silence is the correct response. Silence is the response that tells them the truth about their actual position in your life, which is outside of it. And here is the deeper Machiavellian truth that you need to carry with you from this day forward. Your indifference is the ultimate destruction. Your silence is the final blow. Your absence is their punishment. Read that again, slowly. Your indifference is the ultimate destruction. Not your anger, not your words, not your most perfectly crafted argument, not your public exposure of their behavior, not your emotional breakdown in front of people who were never on your side. Your indifference, the quiet, absolute, sovereign decision to simply not care, to wake up each morning and step into your life as though they do not exist, as though their noise does not reach you, as though the drama they created is happening in another dimension that has nothing to do with your reality. That is the ultimate destruction. Your silence is the final blow, not a blow they can see coming, not a blow they can block or deflect or answer. A blow that arrives as absence, the absence of response, the absence of engagement, the absence of acknowledgement, and lands not on their body, but deep inside their mind, where it echoes and reverberates and refuses to stop. Your absence is their punishment. When you remove yourself from someone's orbit, when you stop being available, stop being reactive, stop being the person they could count on to engage, your absence becomes a presence in their life. They feel it. Every time they expect to reach you and find nothing. Every time they imagine how you must be living, what you must be doing, what you must be building in the silence they cannot penetrate. Your absence haunts them. And it does so not because you designed it to, but because they are not big enough, not whole enough, not psychologically independent enough to handle being truly unseen by someone they tried to affect. Your absence is the mirror they cannot look away from. It shows them exactly what they are, irrelevant to someone they tried to make relevant to. And that mirror, that devastating, wordless mirror, is the most sophisticated form of justice that exists.
Let me bring this to the real world now. Let me make this land in the soil of actual lived experience so that you can recognize this in your own life with clarity. You know this person. You have met this person. You may be fighting with this person right now. Think about the coworker who has made it their quiet mission to undermine you. They take credit for your work in meetings. They spread subtle stories that cast doubt on your competence. They are politically savvy enough to never do anything openly. Everything is deniable. Everything is technically explainable. But you know what they are doing, and they know that you know. The temptation is to call them out, to document everything, to go to management, to confront them directly and force the conversation that will expose who they are. But think about what happens when instead of any of that, you become entirely unreachable to their games. You stop giving them material. You stop sharing details of your work that they could use against you. You stop engaging in the subtle social warfare they are trying to draw you into. You focus entirely, ruthlessly, completely on producing results that speak for themselves. You become the person in the room who needs no allies in the gossip war because your work is undeniably, visibly excellent. You smile at them the way a lion smiles at something that is not worth chasing. And they try harder. They escalate. They become more obvious because they are not getting the reaction they need to calibrate their attacks. And in becoming more obvious, they expose themselves. Not because you exposed them, you did not do a single thing, but because your silence forced them to show their hand in front of people who were watching. Your silence drew them out of the shadows, and in the light, everyone could finally see what they were. Now think about the person from your past, the ex, the old friend, the family member, who decided that the end of your relationship with them was actually an opportunity to rewrite history, who suddenly had things to say, who contacted mutual connections with their version of events, who posted cryptic things on their social media, clearly designed to be seen by you or by people who know you, who reached out occasionally with messages that were not quite an olive branch and not quite an attack, but were designed to get a response, any response, that would give them information about where you are emotionally, what you are thinking, whether you still care. Every message you do not respond to is a message that tells them everything they need to know. Not with your words, but with your silence. The silence that says, I have moved so far beyond this that reaching back would require me to travel in a direction I have no interest in going. The silence that says, the person you knew, the person who would have responded, who would have engaged, who would have taken the bait, that person no longer exists. I have become someone your games cannot reach. And that growth, that evolution, that forward movement is the most powerful thing you can communicate. Not with a speech, not with a post, not with a perfectly worded message about how you have grown and changed and no longer need them. Just by living it, just by becoming it, just by being so thoroughly, so obviously, so undeniably someone who has moved forward that the contrast between where you are and where they still are speaks louder than any words could ever speak. Let me address the voice inside you that says, "But if I do not defend myself, people will believe the wrong things about me. If I do not speak up, the lies will become the truth. If I stay silent, they win." I understand that voice. I want you to understand where it comes from. That voice comes from a place that has not yet grasped the full depth of what is happening in human social dynamics. It comes from a fear-based understanding of power, the belief that power must be visibly exercised to be real, that silence looks like weakness to those watching, that your reputation needs active management through active defense. But here is the truth that the most psychologically evolved people already know. Your character does not need a press secretary. The people who know you, the people who have actually experienced who you are, do not need to be told what to think by your response to someone who attacked you. They already know. And the people who are prepared to believe the worst about you based on the word of someone clearly acting from a place of bitterness or rage, those people were never truly in your corner to begin with. You do not have a relationship to protect there. You have a perception to let go of. And here is the even deeper truth. When you respond to an attack, you give it gravity. You elevate it. You confirm that it is serious enough to require a response, and that confirmation, coming from you, is the thing that makes casual observers wonder if there might be something to it after all. Your defense can accidentally become your indictment. But when you do not respond, when the attack falls into the silence of your non-reaction, the attack looks exactly like what it is, an isolated, desperate, unprovoked act from someone who clearly has unresolved feelings about a person who has moved on and does not seem to have noticed that they are still looking back. Your silence is your statement. Your continued excellence is your defense. Your life, lived fully, lived forward, lived with visible peace and genuine joy, is the most comprehensive, the most irrefutable, the most permanently persuasive argument you could ever make. No one who watches you thrive in the silence believes the noise that could not slow you down. There is one more dimension of this that must be spoken. Because ignoring is not merely a reactive strategy. It is not simply something you do in response to attacks. At the highest level, at the level of true psychological sovereignty, ignoring becomes a philosophy, a way of relating to the entire landscape of noise, negativity, distraction, and irrelevance that the world constantly tries to pour into your consciousness. Think about how much of your mental energy, right now, today, is occupied by things and people that are not serving you. The opinion of someone you barely respect, the behavior of someone who has shown you repeatedly what they are, the judgment of people whose lives you would not want to trade for your own, the social media posts of people you would not have a real conversation with, the rumors from environments you have outgrown, the expectations of people who benefited from a version of you that no longer exists. All of this is noise. And your attention, remember what we established at the very beginning, your attention is currency. Every moment you spend processing this noise is a moment stolen from your signal, from your actual life, from the people who deserve you, from the work that needs you, from the dreams that are waiting for you to focus long enough to bring them into reality. The practice of strategic silence, the daily, disciplined, intentional practice of deciding what is worth your awareness and what is not a strategy you deploy occasionally in moments of conflict. It is a way of living. It is a standard you set for your consciousness, a standard that says, only the worthy enter here. Only the meaningful, the constructive, the genuinely important get space in my mind. Everything else, every provocation, every manipulation, every attempt to drag me into chaos that is not mine, meets the same response. Nothing. Not cold nothing. Not contemptuous nothing. Not dramatic nothing performed for an audience. Genuine nothing. Because you were not thinking about it. Because it was never significant enough to occupy the space it tried to claim in your mind. Because you were too busy living.
This is the highest form of power, not the power that wins arguments, not the power that defeats enemies in visible combat, the power that simply does not participate in battles that are beneath it, the power that chooses, consciously, constantly, completely, what is real and what is irrelevant, and by that choice shapes the entire landscape of its own reality. We are nearing the end, and I want to leave you with something that lands not just in your mind, but in the deepest part of your conviction. The part of you that is going to remember this, not just today, but in the moment it matters. In the exact second when the provocation arrives and your fingers move toward a response. I want you to remember this. You are not obligated to explain yourself to people who have already decided what they think about you. You are not required to defend yourself to people who are not qualified to judge you. You are not responsible for managing the emotions of people who tried to weaponize their emotions against you. You do not owe anyone the closure they are trying to extract from your attention. Your silence is not avoidance, it is a declaration. It is the declaration of someone who has looked at what is on offer and found it unworthy of their engagement. Someone who has such a clear sense of their own value, their own direction, their own standard for what deserves space in their consciousness, that the noise, no matter how loud, no matter how targeted, no matter how personally designed to get under their skin, simply does not penetrate. Because you are sealed, not cold, not closed, not armored against the world in a way that keeps beauty out alongside the pain. Sealed against the specific frequency of other people's attempts to drag you down, pull you back, keep you small, make you reactive, make you prove yourself, make you spend your precious, finite, irreplaceable mental energy on people and situations that do not deserve a single second of it. You are sealed. And in that sealing, in that quiet, absolute, unshakable decision to direct your attention only toward what is worthy of it, you become something that the noise can never touch. You become genuinely, psychologically, philosophically untouchable. Not because nothing can hurt you, but because you have decided that the things that once tried to hurt you simply do not get access to the part of you that can be hurt. They do not get the response. They do not get the engagement. They do not get the validation. They do not get the emotional reaction that is the only currency they came to collect. They get nothing. And in that nothing, in that calm, sovereign, devastating nothing, lies the full magnitude of your power.
Let me speak to you now about the Machiavellian truth that runs beneath all of this. The philosophical bedrock that makes this not just a strategy, but a worldview. Niccolò Machiavelli understood something about human nature that most people in his time, and honestly, most people in our time, are not equipped to face. He understood that the world operates not on the morality that is preached, but on the psychology that is practiced. That power does not flow toward the most righteous, or the most vocal, or the most justified. It flows toward the most controlled, the most disciplined, the most capable of operating from a place of strategic calculation rather than emotional reaction. Machiavelli would tell you this: it is not enough to be powerful if you behave like you are powerless. It is not enough to be right if you act like someone who needs to convince others they are wrong. The perception of your power begins not with what you say, but with what you choose not to say. When a prince, and you are the prince of your own life, the sovereign of your own kingdom, when a prince responds to every insult, engages every challenger, defends against every accusation, they reveal something. They reveal that they can be moved, that they can be accessed, that the right kind of provocation will pull them off course and into conflict. And once an enemy knows what moves you, they will always have leverage over you. But the prince who responds to provocation with the absolute stillness of someone who has already won, who moves through the world at a frequency so elevated that most attacks simply do not reach it, that prince is a different kind of threat entirely. That prince is not afraid of being underestimated. That prince is not afraid of what others think in the short term. That prince is playing a longer, deeper game
than the noise can comprehend. And you right now, are being invited into that game. Not the game of who can argue the best, not the game of who can clap back the fastest, not the game of who can destroy whom in a public exchange. Those are children's games. Those are the games of people who have never understood that the real battle is not between you and your enemies. The real battle is inside you. Between the part of you that wants to react, to prove, to defend, to be seen and acknowledged as the one who was right, and the part of you that knows, at a level deeper than pride, that engaging is always a loss, that silence is always strength, that peace is the most powerful state you can exist in when surrounded by people who are desperate for your chaos. Win the internal battle. Win it every day. Win it in the small moments when the provocation is almost funny in its smallness and your instinct is to take the bait anyway. Win it in the large moments when the attack is designed to be genuinely devastating, when the lie is convincingly told, when the betrayal cuts deep enough that silence feels physically impossible. Win it there most of all, because it is in those moments, the moments of maximum provocation, maximum pain, maximum temptation to explode, that your silence speaks the loudest, that your control reveals itself as the formidable, terrifying, deeply mature power that it is. And it is in those moments that you become truly, finally, completely untouchable. So here we are, at the end of the video. At the beginning, if you have truly heard what has been said here, of a new relationship between you and your own power. Let me condense what you now know. Your attention is the most valuable currency you own. Do not spend it on the undeserving. Silence is not passive. It is an act of absolute psychological aggression. An aggression so refined, so controlled, so devastating in its effect on the human mind that it makes every other form of retaliation look crude and ineffective by comparison. The human brain needs closure. When you deny it, you break it. Not you, your silence. Your silence does the work without you having to participate. Every response you give an unworthy person is a transfer of power. Every silence you maintain is a reclamation of that power. Your enemies are most destroyed by your success. Your critics are most starved by your non-response. Your energy parasites are most contained by your chosen distance. And the philosophy that governs all of it, the cold, clear, Machiavellian principle that should guide every decision you make about who gets access to your energy, your attention, your emotional world, is this. Your indifference is the ultimate destruction. Your silence is the final blow. Your absence is their punishment. And one more thing. Before you go, before you walk back into your life armed with this understanding, before you sit across from the people who have been feeding on your reactions and decide, finally, that the feeding stops today, I need you to do something. I need you to subscribe to this channel. Because this is a community of people who are choosing themselves, people who are done being reactive, people who understand that psychological sovereignty, true, earned, unshakable psychological sovereignty, is not something you stumble into. It is something you build, deliberately, consistently, one decision at a time. And every video on this channel is another brick in that building. Subscribe. And in the comments below this video, I want you to do something that might feel strange, but that I promise you is more powerful than it sounds. Drop the words, I erase the unworthy. Say it, write it. Let it exist outside of your head for the first time. Because affirmations are not wishes, they are declarations. They are the moment your intention becomes language, and your language begins to shape your reality. I erase the unworthy. It means I choose what enters my mind. I choose what gets my attention. I choose who is real in my world and who is rendered invisible by my absolute indifference. I choose the quality of my consciousness and the standard of what I allow to disturb it. I erase the unworthy. It means you are no longer available for the games, for the drama, for the provocations, for the endless, exhausting, soul-depleting cycle of reaction and counter-reaction and justification and defense and everything they tried to keep you spinning in. You are out. Not angry, not broken, not bitter, not performing indifference for their benefit. Simply, genuinely, completely done and free. The most powerful statement a sovereign mind can make is not written in the language of argument or confrontation. It is written in the absolute, unbroken silence of a life so fully lived, so powerfully built, so ruthlessly focused, that the noise of those who tried to break you becomes nothing more than the distant sound of irrelevance, echoing in a void that your indifference created and your absence sustains. You do not need to destroy your enemies. You only need to become something they cannot reach.